reduction, education, and investigate opioid dependence. That's a really good scenario you bring up. Thanks for sharing that. I think I'm going to get to that scenario after you have finished up. No worries, and thanks for bringing it up, because I think it's a real world one that comes up. I think almost in every pharmacy you've worked at as a pharmacist or as a student. So you have a model for Evelyn. So screening the patient. She's taking an opiate. She has teens at home and kids who are at risk of an accidental overdose. So don't just think about, I think the patient is a very salient feature. We think about the person in front of us, but do they have kids? Or, do they have, what's their occupation? Are they working with kids, for example? All these things are really, really important. If they're bringing an opiate bottle that doesn't have a locking mechanism in their bag, and, I don't know, they're supervising grade 3 kids, and remember yourself when you're in grade 3 and someone takes a bag and tosses it and some of the pills fall on the floor and all that stuff. So there's a lot of different scenarios that would merit naloxone. And, ask about naloxone therapy. So Evelyn, I don't see a naloxone kit on your file. Have you thought about having one in your home? How do you think about how to integrate that conversation upon the initial conversation and intake? Voice the importance. And naloxone kit in your home can help treat obviously any accidents. It's like an EpiPen for your kids. We never need to use it, but it's there. And not only that, you might want to have multiple EpiPens. Maybe train the kids on how to use it as well. I think that's really, really key, and we're not doing enough to engage those. It's a very safe medication, right? It's very inert, even if it was given to someone who didn't have an opiate overdose. So, and then educate, how to, which dosing form. Now, because she has kids, we probably may go with a injectable format to be able to titrate the dose, and then how to properly use and assess symptoms and so forth. Before I go into the case that was in the chat, someone like her, let's say she's resistant. She's not, happy with how you've approached her, how you've labeled it, right? So she says she's super careful with her pills. She only gets a small amount. She hides them from her children. Okay, that is very fair. And we know by her fail history, she's totally telling the truth, and we think she's quite diligent, and really kind of acknowledge that. I think it's key, is that I see that, and I'm not even blaming you, but it's kind of a standard of practice. And just because of the medication itself, I'm not even thinking about you, Evelyn, as one of my patients, whether you're XYZ patient, it's just being on this medication, it automatically prompts us as this pharmacy flag it to provide an naloxone kit. And so it's also meant to save, it's helped to protect your community. You're not going to be using it on yourself. But if an accident happens, it may be outside of home. It might be at work. It might be just anytime there's an accident that could happen. Can I get one ready for you? Again, we're being proactive. We're prompting, super key as part of this conversation. So I want to go to the last scenario here that was brought up. So it's a real life scenario. We do see this. Patients are coming in from other countries asking for T1s. I mean, there's a bit of a crackdown, and we're probably going to see that change. We've seen quite a bit of change already, but should they be offered a naloxone kit? What do you guys think? Let's say that traveler who's stationed in Vancouver for 3 days from a cruise comes up to you. She's 81, and you don't have her pharmanet. She's from the US, or you don't have her medication profile. You ask her. She's on diabetes, she's on insulins, etc. She said she, has some aches and pains that she needs T1s. They help kind of bridge and kind of, make the trip, painless as possible and make her enjoy it. Would you dispense, or would you flag someone like that for a naloxone kit? I think I'm flipping it to you guys. Any thoughts about that? And why or why not? So what I think is absolutely, and it might be a tough conversation because they're coming from a different, let's say, country where, the US is, I think the FDA has actually put a co-dispense in some states, have mandated co-dispensing by pharmacies. I think Boston, Massachusetts, seemingly the same Edward, I think, he's been to, I think it's St. Edward, I'm not sure, it could be a different one, but one of the Edwards I know, definitely had spent some time in Boston. And so, there's a lot of different, states in the U.S., not all of them, keep in mind, but some governors and so forth have mandated that it's co-dispensed by the pharmacy. But I think the education, that's a great opportunity. And, the whole point of this, it's public health, right? We're not cherry picking whether you're from your province or home city, it's not going to be used by her. That is the truth. It's going to be used by someone around her. So educate and say, hey, have you heard of naloxone kits? Are they on the cruise ship? It's something that we want to encourage with this medication. Our pharmacy, we always will co-dispense, and it's something that by default we dispense, whether you're getting a Tylenol 1 or 3, because there's a slight elevated risk just because of the medication, not because of you. And I think, again, it's a great opportunity to engage them in destigmatizing the conversation. So yes, I would screen. Yes, I would give it. Absolutely. Unless, like, obviously, you have the interaction, see how they feel, unless they're absolutely adamant on not having it. So what can you do, tomorrow with the pharmacy? So just to summarize a little bit, make sure you have kits in stock. This is an opportunity to screen and engage. Don't wait. Engage the pharmacy team. So discuss the new guidelines. That's, I think, a good start, because, it's like, hey, I went to this education program. That sounds good. It's cool. So what did you learn? And so there's a nice frame of reference to back it up. And we go into a little bit more detail of sort of how we, built this consensus. Reducing opiate related harms obviously is the goal. And most, I think when we survey pharmacies, when you look at the data, the pharmacies that do really well offer a prescription drop off. So that's really, really key. And so that's really important, is how think about a protocol, that you're comfortable with of approaching patients. And all of us are going to be a bit different. All of our personalities on this line, even, we're very, very different probably. So use something that will make it comfortable. And I think you can say expect the unexpected, or be comfortable with the rejection. I think that's probably the toughest part, as a provider, as a pharmacist. This doesn't take a lot of time. So just keep that in mind too, is that honestly, you do something that's 30 seconds or less. That's what I think I like to frame as, and educate and encourage people as a goal. And then remind the pharmacy team that it's for anyone who's prescribing opiate. Train your techs, train your assistants, and co-dispense. Think of that linkage, and how we can make it more of a common conversation, instead of waiting for someone to come to you and say, hey, I heard about this program on TV. What's the take-home naloxone kit program? So the Save a Life model, how to apply it, is screening all patients taking an opiate. This can occur during, I say most often in real world practice, it's probably better to do at drop-off. Also during calls. I mean, a lot of people are engaging. They're calling before coming to pharmacy because of COVID. See how that's an opportunity, again, to engage them. Ask about naloxone therapy, personalize the message, make it about the therapy, not the patient. Don't stigmatize. Voice the importance of naloxone. So it's a life-saving drug, low risk. It's there just in case. You hope you never need to use it. It only takes one accident. And again, you can save a life. That's very powerful. It's a very, important role to play as a healthcare provider, regardless of whether you're a pharmacist, a physician, a nurse, chiropractor, etc. And educate the patient on the use of naloxone. So, the dosing form, how to use it, obviously that's super, super key. And again, this doesn't take a lot of time, but how to recognize a patient in an overdose situation. And absolutely all the time, 911 by default should be ingrained in that training. Start somewhere. I would say, I like the point brought up in the chat about, if you're that pharmacy, I mean, most pharmacies are that 1% or less, or that dispensing like the 2% or less number. How do we make it into 20% in 6 months? Probably a reasonable goal, I'd say, depending on your practice and your team. And look at measuring it, because I think that's powerful when you can track. It's like going to the gym for a workout, right? People like to track their progress in weights, for example. There's a reason for doing it. It's powerful to sort of mentally think, okay, I think I went for 35s and now I'm going 40s or 20s or whatever it is. And try to start with maybe, trying with one patient and then build, normalize it, make it part of the pharmacy's kind of way of doing things. It's not cherry picking, and really saying it's because it's medication or drug, or let's say opiate class, everyone will get an naloxone kit unless they really, really don't want it. So that's kind of the idea you're working towards, and maybe have signage to help demonstrate that. There's no drug interaction. It's very inert and safe, so kids can actually be trained on this as well. And this is key. This is really, I think, made me think quite a bit about sort of this whole conversation, is that you on the other line right now tonight, as a pharmacist, if you don't offer these, think about where it will be offered. Probably nowhere else. And I think that really hits home, is that don't assume that when they walk out of the pharmacy, we'll get it somewhere. I'm sure we'll get it Safeway or the Bay or whatever, Costco, or at work. I'm sure they're giving free kits. No. This is basically, we're kind